Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Monday Musings, Danny and Friends SportsWrap. It's always presented by Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, 7 locations all around in Kansas City. And it's the place to get stretched out, worked out, feeling better, all the things that you can get with a wide variety of services at a wide variety of places. Check them out anytime, 7 spots around Kansas City. It is ASFCA. Well, the NFL is probably the best league in existence where if they're not playing, people are still paying attention, and they were drafting. And, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs are the 2-time defending champions, so they're going to attract a lot of attention, and especially a lot of attention here, and why not? And we'll talk it all over with Jesse Newell. He's on the Chiefs beat for the Kansas City Star, and we'll have a deep dive breakdown into that, and a little Jayhawks as well, a little taste. The Royals have stopped hitting, but they still are carving out enough wins. They've actually been doing remarkably well in games that they have not scored many runs. Can it continue? We'll see. They drop a series in Detroit. They head to Toronto. They might be kind of on the verge of a mini slump here. They've split their last 8. We'll see how it goes up in Canada. Peter Vermees continues to focus on the positives for his Sporting Kansas City team, despite not many great results, and another defeat, this one in Minnesota. He had a lot to say about the officiating in the 2-1 loss. We'll talk about that as well. No such problems in the NWSL for the Kansas City Current. They are undefeated. They are dominant. They can win on the home. They can win on the road, which they did against Angel City. That's Los Angeles on Friday. And so they are a big story in the NWSL. The NHL and NBA playoffs are going on. There's not gigantic stories there or big upsets or whatever, but we'll take a look at that. Check out some other notes as well. But first up, it's the NFL draft. It's the Chiefs draft with the Kansas City Star's Jesse Newell. It comes your way next, right here on Monday Musings, Danny and Friends Sports Wrap, presented by Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Always great to catch up with Dr. Brad Whittle of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Everybody wants to make every year a great one, mentally and physically, and certainly ASFCA can help in that regard.
Chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapies. We're going to address the body and the mind to keep you in great shape. With winter moving into spring, we don't want to have the opportunity to get hurt or to be slow and not do what we used to do, right?
Absolutely right, and you can do that in a variety of ways.
We can. We love looking at the body and how it moves, looking at the posture and how it holds us to be strong, to be safe, and really to help us do those things we love to do.
The wide variety and range of services you can get helps in that regard at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, 7 locations all around the Kansas City area. Find the one that's most convenient for you. And for more information, visit asfca.com/Danny. That's asfca.com/Danny.
Hey Kansas City, Joe Spiker, Easton Roofing here. Well, it hailed like crazy, and the last thing you want to do is deal with another roofer. So don't. When they show up, tell them you know a guy. An Easton Roofing sign in your yard lets everybody know you want it done right, and it's the best storm chaser repellent you can get. Call us today for a free no-obligation inspection, 913-257-5426 or eastonroofing.com. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business on Kansas City's #1 rated podcast, contact us at Danny@DannyClinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you.
Welcome back. It's Monday Musings, Danny and Friends Sports Wrap, and our friend for today, as far as the Kansas City Chiefs are concerned, is Jesse Newell. We'll maybe work in another thing or two with him as well. And I'm going to start it out this way, Jesse. It's pretty, easy work for the Chiefs these days, stress-free. They probably wouldn't say so. They probably wouldn't allow that to be said. But when your cupboard is fairly full, you're really only adding, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, they're in a more envious spot than a lot of teams that just have direct needs and need to fill in a lot of places right away. and as soon as next year. I mean, I think the Chiefs knew going in, offensive line and receiver, they probably better get those two positions taken care of pretty early in the draft. But their needs aren't like other teams' needs.
Mm-hmm.
And, about half the NFL still needs a quarterback, it seems like, every single year. So the Chiefs are in a little bit of a place of luxury here. But having said that, it seemed like they addressed what they wanted to early, and things probably fell on their board a little bit nicer this year than it did a season ago.
Well, why did you say that? Just add a little bit to that. They obviously traded up for their 2 picks, although not significantly. But why would you say you think it fell well?
Yeah, so I think last year, obviously they were interested in receivers and potentially moving up to go get one. The word was sort of Zay Flowers. They figured they probably could trade up in the draft to go get him, and probably were looking with the Baltimore Ravens, who always seem to trade back, always seem to kind of have the analytical view of things. But when the Chiefs, potentially called them last year, the Ravens said, no, thank you. And then went on and took Zay Flowers themselves, which, very interestingly, in the AFC Championship game, he ended up having one of the costly fumbles against the Chiefs that helped send the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. So kind of players fell off the board right before them last year. And then the Chiefs ended up taking, Felix Anudike-Uzomah. And he was not as productive last year as probably they wanted him to be. But again, I think that was probably the best of an interesting situation for the Chiefs where nobody really fell their way. This year, the receivers, the offensive linemen, tackles, it was a very deep class on both of those, and those are the 2 positions the Chiefs wanted. So the way that things fell, I mean, they would have loved to get one of the top tackles this year, but as it worked out, a lot of quarterbacks went, so it meant a lot of receivers were still available. So the Chiefs were able to get Xavier Worthy with their first pick, and then Kingsley Suamataia with their second pick. And I actually mocked him to the Chiefs in the first round in a mock draft I had about a month ago. He's a guy that was kind of trending toward a late first-round pick before falling a little bit on boards the last couple weeks. So for them to get the receiver they wanted in Worthy and then have a tackle that they liked be able to get in the second round without moving up too high on the boards, it just feels like things probably went a little more naturally for them this year with the boards and how other teams saw players than potentially the way it was and how it happened a year ago.
Well, the way the thing shook out, there were several receivers taken around the time that they took Xavier Worthy. There was a little run there, and Buffalo actually traded back twice and still picked a wide receiver. Who knows whether they wanted the other ones or not, and they probably would say, well, this is the guy we really wanted, and we got to get extra picks, blah, blah, blah. But so you never really know, but it would seem by the way the Chiefs acted, seeing as there were a lot of wide receivers there, that the fastest guy in the draft, was the one they really wanted and were willing to trade up for.
Yeah, and there could be a lot of reasons for that. I did a story a couple weeks ago about the Chiefs' preferences at receivers when they've been looking for guys, and one of the things they always tend towards is the quick 10-yard split. They really like speed. We heard Brett Veach talk about that after their selection on Thursday of Xavier Worthy, that speed plays in the NFL, and the Chiefs have always loved their guys with the 10-yard splits who can get separation and who also can pull defenders down the field. I mean, so much of their offense is predicated on having somebody get downfield so that the intermediate is open for guys like Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce, and to get that sort of guy is a positive. One thing that has not mattered to the Chiefs as much has been height. They've taken shorter receivers, whether that's been Sky Moore, McCole Hardman, Tyreek Hill. Brett Veach especially has not been shy about taking those guys. And Patrick Mahomes really has not been a jump ball type of quarterback for the Chiefs. He likes guys that are open. And so if you get open and you're shorter, that really plays into the Chiefs' preferences. But I think you can look at a couple other things when it comes to Worthy. For one, he is a decent route runner, better probably than he's given credit for just because of his speed. But the other thing with the Chiefs is they've had so many early receivers come in and struggle with the playbook, struggle to get different things down and maybe not be able to play multiple positions. And hearing from the Chiefs guys this past weekend, they really like his Xavier Worthy's intelligence and potentially the ability to play, not only get the playbook down for his one position, but to play multiple positions. And so I just think that for them trading up, they just saw that fit as too good for potentially what they do and potentially them valuing things in him that other teams might not, use up as much. So they really like that pick. They really like they were able to get him at that point. And he was the first of a run, but I think he definitely, as we know, with the Chiefs taking him, he was the preference on the board over guys like Leggett or Keon Coleman, those sorts of guys. And I think the Chiefs are very happy they were able to make that small move up to get a guy they really feel like will fit in their offense.
The simple answer to this may be Travis Kelce, but during the time of Andy Reid's tenure and then Brett Veach's tenure, which started slightly after, the Chiefs really haven't drafted or brought in or seem to have a preference for the true sort of possession receiver, to go back in the day, the Wes Welker, Danny Amendola, that type of guy. They really haven't done that and don't seem to have any inclination to do so.
Yeah, I guess it depends on your definition of that. The closest thing I think they had with that was not a guy they drafted, but a guy that they got back from free agency, which was Juju Smith-Schuster.
Right.
He kind of operated over the middle of the field a little bit like Travis does, but I do think you're right in a little bit of a sense of that they like different guys there. And again, they have a preference towards speed. They will readily admit that they like to get speedy guys on the field. But I think when you look at the Chiefs and how they're constructed and how, we think this thing is going to go with Rashee Rice, it'll probably serve some sort of suspension, but still be, with the Chiefs toward the latter half of the season, that Kelce and Rashee Rice are kind of the same sort of mold. They're yards after catch guys. They're guys over the middle. They're intermediate routes. And really, Rashee Rice is, his route tree was pretty limited a year ago. He still needs to develop some other parts of his game for the Chiefs to kind of trust him in that regard. So what is the piece you're missing there? Well, it's the MVS. It's the McCall Hardman. It's the guy that can go deep. It's the guy that can stretch the defense in that sort of way. So I think the Chiefs in this particular draft, you're trying to sort of vary things up and look toward the future as well. And we know Hollywood Brown is here for a year, but after that, the Chiefs are going to need a long-term solution. So Xavier Worthy made sense in a lot of different ways, and he also sort of complements the pieces that they already have.
The moves they made left them without a third-round pick, but they had a couple of fourths, and they went to areas where they have some strength, and so these are maybe future picks in Jared Wiley and Jaden Hicks.
Yeah, so you talked about kind of the benefit of being the Chiefs here.
Right.
They're not in the fourth round taking guys that they know they have to start right away. And maybe other teams at that point, they're reaching down their board because, like, oh my gosh, who's going to start at X position for the Bears or for the Jets or for the Carolina Panthers, where you maybe have to reach a little bit because that is just such a glaring need. The Chiefs, once they got tackle and receiver, can sort of sit back and say, okay, well, where are they maybe needing in a year or two? And they usually try to replace these positions a year in advance. Jaden Hicks in particular, he's just a guy that I think it's just value,
Right.
He was a second-round pick for most of the consensus boards out there. And, man, you look at his skill set and the versatility he has, being able to play multiple positions. You want to talk about a Chiefs type of player. That's a Steve Spagnuolo type of player. We know they brought in L'Jarius Sneed, who was a safety in college, and turned him into, an elite cornerback. But even a year ago, they traded up for Shamari Connor, and we saw him contribute so much as a fourth-round pick, whether it was a slot corner or as a safety or as a third safety or as a special teams player. They already have the mold of this type of player and how they utilize him and get him in the lineup in very creative ways. So that seemed like a very Chiefs pick to me. And then, Jared Wiley is an interesting one just because, they haven't drafted too many tight ends lately. Noah Gray was the last one that they took, and his contract's going to be up here coming up pretty soon. But a big pass catching option, again, 6'6", 249 pounds, but maybe not as much in the Chiefs mold like I talked about, where you talk about jump ball, red zone type of guy, catches a lot of touchdowns down in that area. But at that point, fourth round, probably pretty good value based on the consensus boards. And they are going to have to make contingency plans at some point for life after Travis Kelce. I'm not sure this is the guy, or potentially if it's not a receiver at some point. Like, most offenses are really good, not because of a Hall of Fame tight end, but because you just have so many good receivers out there that they can make a passing offense go. So kind of an interesting weapon for the Chiefs. He's very athletic. Jared Wiley is, and so maybe you can turn that into something, an older player. Usually tight ends are guys that mature a little bit later in their careers, but nothing else. An interesting flyer at that point, and potentially could give the Chiefs a weapon like they had in Jody Fortune in the red zone. They really didn't have that a year ago. Tried to kind of move Justin Ross into that role, but if they can get that from him and limited stuff like that, and even special teams, then you're probably pretty happy with your fourth round pick.
The Chiefs did pick a center, and, to fans or people who are just sitting out there watching one low snap after another, there's always the thought that they might at some point move Creed Humphrey around. Do you think that's in their in their DNA or in their thought process, or is just this guy was a good value and a good center?
Yeah, so I asked Brett Veach actually at the Combine a couple months ago. I said, obviously, Creed Humphrey's